In December of 2022, 50-year-old Jennifer Heath Box joined her family on a Royal Caribbean cruise to celebrate her brother's recent completion of cancer treatment. After returning to port in Fort Lauderdale aboard the Harmony of the Seas on Christmas Eve, she scanned her ID at the gate. Suddenly, she was surrounded by police and security guards who asked her to confirm her name and instructed her to remove her jewelry. Heath Box was told that she was being arrested on a warrant for child endangerment and was escorted off the ship in front of all the other passengers. The authorities had mistaken her for a woman 23 years her junior named Jennifer Del Carmen Heath, who was wanted in a felony case in Harris County, Texas, involving 2 young children. There was little in common between the women other than their first and middle names. In addition to a more than 2-decade age gap, the wanted suspect was described as several inches shorter than Heath Box, with different colored eyes, hair, and skin. Despite these discrepancies, the issuing agency had mistakenly attached a photo of Heath Box to the warrant. The wrongfully arrested woman was booked into the Broward County Jail, where she was subjected to the humiliating experience of being shackled and strip searched. An employee at the jail ran her license and saw that there were no warrants attached to it, but the arresting deputy insisted they had the correct person in custody. Heath Box was released 3 days later after Harris County informed Broward County of the mistake. She's suing the Broward County Sheriff's Office for wrongful arrest, accusing several of the agency's employees of refusing to acknowledge the obvious inconsistencies which would have proven her innocence. Number 15. Michaela Patterson. In August of 2024, a social media post accused police in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, of brutality following the early morning arrest of 22-year-old Michaela Patterson outside a bar. The claim was accompanied by a 2.5-minute video, which showed a pair of officers taking Patterson to the ground and handcuffing her. Patterson could be heard shouting at the cops to get off of her while a female bystander encouraged her to calm down. She spent the weekend in jail, later claiming that staff members denied her medical treatment for a concussion, a swollen chin, and bruising to her face and body. In the social media post, the young woman claimed that she's now in therapy to help cope with the psychological impact of the traumatic experience. In a statement, the Eau Claire Police Department defended the officers' actions, claiming that Patterson had threatened to punch and beat them. After being warned that threatening a cop was a crime, she reportedly made a remark about smacking the shit out of an officer. In a demonstration of transparency, the agency released the full 2-hour body cam video encompassing Patterson's arrest. Patterson was charged with threatening a law enforcement officer, resisting an officer, and disorderly conduct. The case is ongoing. Number 14. Andrea Smith. In March of 2024, police in Miami Gardens, Florida, pulled over a 10-year veteran of their own department for speeding through 2 red lights. Clad in a dress and high heels, 38-year-old Sergeant Andrea Smith reportedly showed several signs of intoxication when she exited her Mercedes, including slurred speech, glassy, bloodshot eyes, and the smell of alcohol on her breath. Smith refused to take a breathalyzer or undergo a field sobriety test and was arrested on suspicion of driving while intoxicated and reckless driving. In police footage captured during the drive down to booking, she could be heard yelling, "I'm not crazy, I'm sober," at the arresting officer, followed by, "If they could take a sergeant to jail, they could take you to jail." She went on to say that she was being treated like an animal by her own people and threatened to sue the city of Miami Gardens before bragging about her $130,000 car and offering unsolicited financial advice to the officer driving the squad car. Smith pleaded not guilty to the charges and was promptly fired from her job for her conduct. After bonding out of jail, she could be seen rushing over to a waiting SUV while covering her face with a jacket. Number 13. Kyle Davis. 37-year-old police officer Kyle Davis was apprehended while on duty in Vevey, Indiana in July of 2023 for allegedly attempting to film an inappropriate video of a young victim 3 years earlier. His arrest came on the heels of a months-long investigation, which was launched based on the victim's discovery of an iPhone that was left recording in a bathroom in 2020. The victim told investigators that she was at Davis's house to celebrate his daughter's birthday when she went to use the restroom. Davis went into the bathroom before her, and when she went in, she noticed the phone strategically hidden in some clothing. She said that after she exited the restroom, Davis went back in there, presumably to retrieve the device. At the time, the victim was too scared to come forward due to her family's friendly relationship with Davis. She opened up about the incident to a victim advocate who had spoken at her high school, and the police were called. During questioning, Davis denied any wrongdoing. Later that day, he told detectives he had found the video in his iCloud storage and tried to pin the blame on his son, who denied the allegation. Investigators found additional incriminating material during a forensic search of Davis's phone and booked him into the Jefferson County Jail on felony charges of attempted voyeurism and exploitation. Davis was suspended without pay from the Vevey police force and remains free on a $25,000 bond. The case is scheduled to go to trial in January of 2025. Number 12. David Hobbs. In September of 2019, 36-year-old David Hobbs of Clarksdale, Mississippi, was accused of breaking into a backyard shed at 3 in the morning while wearing a Captain America costume and fairy wings. The homeowner confronted him with a gun, and he was booked into custody on a burglary charge. Hobbs instantly regretted his actions when he awoke the next day to learn that he had gone viral overnight. An arresting officer had snapped a photo of him and posted it on Facebook, catching the attention of news outlets across the US and beyond. Humiliated by the publicity he was receiving for his drug-induced behavior, Hobbs later told CBS News that he felt like his life was over and saw himself as an embarrassment to his family. Raised by an alcoholic father, he had been an addict since his teens. His substance use began with marijuana and alcohol, but graduated to narcotic painkillers after a skateboarding accident. Cocaine and methamphetamine came next as Hobbs continued to abuse painkillers. Unable to maintain steady employment due to his substance use, he ruined 2 initially successful family-owned tree removal businesses. One of these failures came after Hobbs drove his work truck improperly while under the influence, rendering the vehicle inoperable. With no way to do his job, he soon ran out of money and became homeless for a short period. After the Captain America incident, Hobbs realized that he desperately needed to straighten his life out. His friend, Trey Lewis, who owns a treatment facility in Dacula, Georgia, offered to let him attend the program for free after seeing news of his arrest and realizing that he needed help. After obtaining permission from the judge overseeing his burglary case, Hobbs took advantage of the offer and dedicated himself fully to his recovery. He's now been sober for 5 years and works at Lewis's facility, where he helps others get their lives back. Number 11. Ellen Glickman. Late one evening in May of 2024, Kate State University Police responded to a 911 call from then director of the college's School of Health Sciences, Ellen Glickman. The 62-year-old had just attended a commencement ceremony and couldn't find her master key to Nixon Hall, where she was hoping to use the restroom. After noticing the smell of alcohol, the responding officers refused to let Glickman drive home and told her to call for a ride. She insisted she only had one drink and was uncooperative, resulting in her arrest on a disorderly conduct by intoxication charge. The case was dropped in exchange for Glickman's willingness to pay court costs and perform community service, but the incident continues to punish her in other ways. Body cam footage of the encounter went viral, with most viewers assuming that the professor is drunk in the video. Glickman insists that this wasn't the case, however, telling the university's newspaper, Kent Wired, that she was sleep deprived and experiencing a medical episode from chronic kidney disease. She did not undergo any sobriety tests on the night of her arrest because it's customary for police to charge someone with disorderly conduct by intoxication based on verbal and physical cues. Glickman accused the police of causing a cut on her hand by mishandling her during her arrest. She said that she believed law enforcement should have handled her differently due to her age and described feeling humiliated by the body cam footage, which went viral shortly after first appearing online. Number 10. Shenna Hardin. While driving in Cleveland, Ohio in September of 2012, 32-year-old Shenna Hardin passed a school bus by driving on the sidewalk. She reportedly had a habit of doing this, but this time she had been recorded doing it on video by a quick-thinking bus driver who was fed up with the repeated traffic violations. After capturing the footage, Uriah Heron reported her to the police, who set up a sting. Upon being caught in the act, Shenna denied ever driving on the sidewalk, while her mother, Toni Hardin, claimed it was her first time ever doing so. Toni accused a particular bus driver of spending an excessive amount of time in the way, blocking other vehicles from legally passing. on their way to and from school. Armed with the video of Hardin driving on the sidewalk on a previous occasion, Heron challenged her claim that this was a first-time thing, and at least one parent reported seeing the woman committing the unsafe traffic maneuver on a regular basis. Despite her initial denial, Hardin ultimately pleaded guilty to failure to stop for a school bus. As part of her punishment, she was required to stand on a street corner during the morning rush hour with a 22-inch by 22-inch sign reading, "Only an idiot would drive on the sidewalk to avoid a school bus." The judge ordered Hardin to spend 1 hour at the site for 2 days in a row, suspended her driver's license for a month, and fined her $250. Naturally, the press was already gathered at the designated location when Hardin showed up to serve her punishment. She told Anderson Live that the experience had been a lesson learned for her and had set an example to her daughter about how there are consequences to breaking rules. Number 9. Mick Highcola. In 2023, 70-year-old Mick Highcola tried to return expired prescription medication he no longer needed to his local pharmacist in Kuna, Idaho. The pharmacist told him to take it to one of the state's designated prescription drug disposal boxes. So he headed to the Kuna police station, where he knew he'd find one of the receptacles. After pulling into the parking lot at around noon, a pair of empty police SUVs caught Highcola's attention. Out of curiosity, he walked up to the vehicles and began peering in through the windows. Suddenly, an unmarked car pulled up. Dressed in plain clothes, Sergeant Brian Keene exited the vehicle and asked Highcola why he was looking into our cars. Unaware that the man was a cop, Highcola said, "They're my cars too," implying his awareness that the vehicles are paid for with taxpayer dollars. Keene ordered him to show his hands, but Highcola refused. Frustrated with Keene's attitude, Highcola uttered an expletive and walked away. He entered the police station, where he was confronted by multiple officers as he deposited his medication into the disposal box. The officers ordered Highcola outside, where 6 cops pinned his arms behind his back. They pushed the senior citizen against the railing, causing him to soil himself due to a recent invasive surgery which had weakened his control over his bowels. Highcola would later accuse law enforcement of interrogating him without reading him his Miranda rights and forcing him to languish in his own waste for hours before booking him into custody on a misdemeanor resisting or obstructing charge. He fought the charge, and the judge dismissed the case after determining that the police had not acted with reasonable suspicion. In 2024, Highcola settled a lawsuit with local law enforcement for an undisclosed sum, along with a promise to provide improved training for officers. Number 8. Eric Deshawn Morton. In July of 2022, a store manager at the Briarwood shopping mall in Ann Arbor, Michigan, took a phone call from a nervous-sounding man who told her that a male employee had been uploading voyeuristic videos of female employees on a website. The footage had been captured without the women's knowledge or consent using a camera that was hidden in a staff bathroom, and it would turn out to be one of dozens of cameras that had been surreptitiously installed in bathrooms throughout the city. The anonymous caller described the alleged peeping Tom as a tall African-American male, which matched the appearance of just one employee. 36-year-old Eric Deshawn Morton had been using the ladies' bathroom, claiming he preferred it because it was stocked with disposable gloves, which he liked to wear while he worked, and he had recently been spending a lot of time in there, furthering the suspicion that he could be the culprit. During a search of Morton's house, police found a plethora of electronic devices, including laptops, memory cards, and easy-to-hide cameras. The devices contained hundreds of videos that had been recorded over a 7-month period. This wasn't Morton's first time busted for this type of crime. Just months earlier, the serial peeping Tom had been released from prison after serving several years for committing similar offenses in 2015. In the previous case, police found 7,000 images in his possession after a woman caught him filming her through the peephole of a porta potty. The material dated back to 2010, indicating that bathroom spying was a cornerstone of Morton's lifestyle. In another previous incident, which occurred in 2012, Morton's co-worker found a camera disguised as a phone charger, recording in an employee bathroom. Morton initially denied that it was a camera, but was ultimately fired from his job. His history of arrests for these types of crimes dates at least as far back as 2006. Morton was arrested a total of 3 times in 2022, amounting to 25 felony charges against him. In early 2024, he pleaded no contest to 13 counts, including 5 counts of using a computer to commit a crime and 7 counts of capturing an image of an unclothed person. He was sentenced to 8 to 20 years in prison, with an earliest possible release date of September 2030. Number 7. Tyrone Pfeiffer. 60-year-old grandfather of 8, Tyrone Pfeiffer of Long Island, New York, was leaving his doctor's office in Baldwin in December 2021 when he was suddenly approached by Nassau County police officers. The cops seemed to believe he fit the description of a mentally ill fugitive named Leroy, who was wanted on a domestic violence charge. Body cam footage showed an officer snatching Pfeiffer's umbrella and some Christmas cookies his doctor had just given him as a gift. Confused about why the police were confronting him in such an aggressive manner, Pfeiffer said he didn't do anything and that he had just walked out of the doctor's office. But the officers seemed convinced that he was Leroy and refused to believe Pfeiffer. When he insisted that he had done nothing wrong, the officers wrestled him to the ground and handcuffed him, punching him in the head in the process. Pfeiffer was taken to the hospital where he was handcuffed to a bed until being given an appearance ticket and discharged. He challenged the charges and the case was dropped 10 months after his arrest. In 2024, his lawyer obtained body cam footage from the incident, finally shedding some light on exactly what had happened. Pfeiffer said he feared for his life during the arrest, which turned out to be a case of mistaken identity, and went on to describe it as the worst day of his life. He's currently in the process of suing the Nassau County Police Department for excessive force. The lawsuit accuses the agency of covering up the wrongful arrest and excessive force. Number 6. Darnell McLeod. In July of 2024, business owner Darnell McLeod was arrested in front of customers at his restaurant in Fremont, Ohio, on a warrant for 2 felony drug charges. The only problem was that there was no warrant out for McLeod's arrest. It was for a man he shared a first name with, Darnell Smith, but the officers seemed uninterested in verifying his identity. They didn't ask McLeod for his ID or even his last name, instead placing him in the back of a squad car and taking him to county lockup. The mistake was finally realized after a jail employee called McLeod Mr. Smith. He replied, "My name ain't Mr. Smith," and provided the staff member with his name. Based on that information, the employee realized a mistake had been made and notified their supervisor. After spending 30 minutes at the jail, McLeod was released, but he believes the ordeal could have been avoided altogether if the arresting officers had listened to him in the first place. The officer who led the arrest was charged with misconduct for failing to confirm the suspect's identity. An internal disciplinary hearing found that if he had just been a little more thorough in his procedures, the mix-up could have been avoided altogether. He was sentenced to a 3-day unpaid suspension and ordered to undergo additional training. McLeod told the Fremont News Messenger that he believes the wrongful arrest has affected business at his restaurant, but that the community is also supportive. He's reportedly considering legal action against the police department for the incident, which has remained a topic of conversation among him and his customers. Number 5. Mary Kate Richalonis. In June of 2024, 23-year-old Tennessee Titans inside sales executive and Instagram model Mary Kate Witchalonis was accused of attacking a security guard outside a Nashville bar. According to police, she was trying to sneak her boyfriend into the bar because he didn't have his ID when they were confronted by a bouncer. As security guard Noah Williams attempted to remove Witchalonis from the property, she reportedly struck him in the head 6 times. Upon noticing the situation at hand, other nearby security guards restrained Witchalonis until police arrived. They then handed her over to the custody of responding officers who noted in their arrest report that the young woman smelled strongly of alcohol. The police could have released Witchalonis with a citation, but they decided to book her into custody when she refused to let them take her fingerprints. She was charged with assault and public intoxication and was freed on bond shortly thereafter. The current status of the case is unclear. Number 4. Belinda Goodwin. On a Saturday night in November of 2023, Australian police arrested single mother Belinda Goodwin at her Gold Coast apartment for failing to pay a $58 gasoline bill. According to news reports, Goodwin had promised to return to a 7-Eleven store with money for her gas after her Apple Pay app malfunctioned, but she never did. 2 months later, she received a court summons in the mail, but she assumed that she didn't need to attend the hearing as long as she paid the bill. She was wrong. And when the police came to arrest her, they reportedly dragged her out of the residence in her underwear in front of her neighbors and daughter. The incident was especially humiliating for Goodwin because she had just moved into her new home and was now worried that she had made a bad impression on her neighbors. As officers dragged her out of the apartment, she screamed for help and asked what she had done to get arrested. One neighbor told reporters that she felt the police had been overly aggressive toward Goodwin, but a police spokesperson announced that the arresting officers had been cleared of any wrongdoing. Law enforcement accused Goodwin of becoming obstructive and uncooperative when they took her into custody. The authorities also claimed that the overdue gas bill wasn't the main reason for Goodwin's arrest, but did not go into further detail about the nature of the allegations. Number 3. Ryan Russillo. During the pre-dawn hours one morning in August of 2017, police in Jackson, Wyoming responded to a call about a highly intoxicated male who was refusing to leave a local condo. The owners were shocked to find ESPN host Ryan Russillo in a bedroom with no shirt on and his pants around his ankles. When they asked him what he was doing there, he reportedly said he was getting his stuff, but he seemed unaware of his location and too incoherent to answer any questions. Russillo was arrested for criminal trespass and spent the next week suspended from his radio show due to his behavior. When he returned to the air, he explained that he drank way too much alcohol during the first night of his vacation in Jackson Hole and returned to the wrong residence. He apologized and took ownership of his actions, making it clear that he understood what a huge mistake he had made and emphasizing how he and he alone was responsible for it. Russillo was found guilty of the criminal trespass charge and was ordered to pay a small fine. Today's topic was inspired by Mary D. Love 25 and Kelly's Homemade Kitchen. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Martha Menafield. In 2022, an 82-year-old Alabama woman named Martha Menafield was arrested for failing to pay a $77 garbage bill. People were shocked at law enforcement's decision to take such seemingly drastic action against an elderly woman, and many felt that by arresting Menafield, the police were criminalizing her for being in debt. A city spokesperson claimed that Menafield's arrest came after repeated attempts were made to collect on the bill. According to local officials, Menafield had a history of problems with code enforcement, and a warrant was issued for her arrest after she failed to appear in court for a citation after a reminder was left on her door. Menafield claimed that she was unaware of the citation because her daughter handled her bills, but a police spokesperson said law enforcement had no choice but to serve the warrant. Body cam footage showed an officer laughing after Menafield opened her door and expressed shock over the situation. He said, "I am sorry, but the law is the law," and apologetically placed her in handcuffs. Records show that Menafield had one prior citation from 2006 for not paying her garbage bill. Sympathetic community members came together and launched a crowdfunding campaign for the senior citizen who was struggling financially and raised $35,000 for her to put toward her living expenses. Straight after number 1, we will go into 6 manhunts that went wrong. For the hunted, that is. Stick around if you haven't seen that one yet. Number 1. Christopher Fox. In early 2023, the NYPD's Ghost Gun Team raided the Manhattan apartment of actress Julia Fox's dad and brother, Thomas and Christopher Fox. The 6 a.m. bust was carried out as part of a larger investigation into ghost guns. Inside the apartment, police found ghost guns, 3D printers, fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, unidentified pills, a peel press, and materials that are often used to make explosives. Mixed in with the contraband was tens of thousands of dollars worth of high-end wine. Thomas and Christopher, neither of whom had a previous criminal history, were taken into custody during the raid. Christopher was charged with a slew of gun and drug-related counts, including for using a 3D printer to manufacture ghost gun parts. He was released on a $450,000 bond, courtesy of his celebrity sister, who was reportedly heartbroken and embarrassed by the arrest. Shortly after the bust, Thomas was overheard talking to workers at his apartment building about how the cops had done him a favor by arresting Christopher, who he had been trying to kick out of the apartment for years. The case appears to be ongoing. Just before midnight on April the 28th of 2023, gunfire broke out in a residential neighborhood located northwest of the town of Cleveland in San Jacinto County, Texas. Emergency crews responded to the scene, where 4 victims were immediately pronounced dead after suffering devastating gunshot wounds. A 5th victim was taken to the hospital, where they too succumbed to their injuries. Authorities came upon 3 minors at the scene who were covered in blood. Upon taking them to the hospital, however, it was determined that they were physically unharmed. The individual accused of carrying out the mass shooting was named as Francisco Oropeza, aged 38. Investigators were able to identify him by way of a Mexican consulate card and footage from a Ring doorbell camera. Oropeza fled following the shooting, which was described as the end product of a dispute between him and a neighbor. The man had reportedly been asked by one of his neighbors to refrain from firing his AR-15 in his yard. The neighbor told Oropeza that the gunfire was disturbing his sleeping baby and threatened to call the police. Oropeza subsequently retrieved the rifle from his residence before barging into the neighbor's house and opening fire. The ensuing manhunt came to involve the Houston field office of the FBI. A judge issued a warrant for the suspect's arrest along with a $5 million bond. Investigators theorized that Oropeza had fled on foot or a bicycle and initially limited the search radius to just 2 miles. However, the manhunt was later expanded to stretch across a 10-mile radius, and authorities offered a $100,000 reward for assistance in the suspect's capture. On May the 1st, 3 days after the incident, Oropeza was briefly spotted near Texas State Highway 105, prompting schools in the area to be shut down. The following day, the FBI received a tip that he was hiding out in a house associated with one of his family members in the city of Cut and Shoot, situated about 18 miles from the scene of the mass shooting. Law enforcement found Oropeza hiding in a closet at the residence and swiftly took him into custody after a 4-day manhunt. Shortly after his arrest, his wife was likewise apprehended for allegedly providing him with food and clothes during the course of his time on the run, as well as plotting to escape to Mexico with him. Number 5. Brant Fuetz. In June of 2023, the Columbia Police Department in Missouri issued shelter-in-place warnings for residents of the Old Hawthorne neighborhood and its surrounding areas as authorities searched for a parolee on the run. The suspect, 36-year-old Brant Fuetz, had been in and out of prison numerous times since 2006. At the time of his most recent run-in with the law, the man was out on parole in connection with armed robbery and drug offenses. On June the 5th, police had been called to the area of US Highway 54 after witnesses reported seeing a possible domestic attack involving 2 people in a white BMW sedan. Fuetz, the driver of the vehicle in question, allegedly struck a female companion before forcing her to get out of the car. He subsequently put the BMW in reverse and hit the victim with the passenger side door. Upon law enforcement's arrival, Fuetz fled the scene. The man led authorities on a 2-day manhunt through Boone County before he was finally apprehended. He was reportedly found hiding in a residence on the county's north side. In addition to the domestic violence incident, Fuetz was accused of threatening his mother and setting her garage on fire. He consequently faced charges of 3rd-degree domestic assault, 1st-degree harassment, and arson. Prosecutors also requested counts of armed criminal action, resisting arrest, unlawful use of a weapon, and unlawful possession of a firearm. Fuetz was transferred to the Missouri Department of Corrections in Fulton, with his next court appearance slated for August of 2023. Number 4. Kevin Geralaga. 34-year-old Kevin Geralaga from San Joaquin County, California, got into a heated argument with his girlfriend during the early morning hours of April the 21st of 2021. As the couple's dispute escalated, Geralaga eventually pulled out a firearm and shot the woman in the face before fleeing the scene. The unnamed victim was taken to a local hospital where she was stabilized and expected to make a full recovery. Geralaga, meanwhile, went on the run. In the incident's aftermath, San Joaquin County law enforcement issued a warrant for his arrest on attempted murder charges. As the manhunt dragged on over subsequent weeks, authorities warned the public that Geralaga should be considered armed and dangerous. Finally, on May the 8th, the suspect was pulled over by the police in Curry County, Oregon. Rather than cooperate during the traffic stop, Geralaga fled, leading to a brief pursuit that culminated in his arrest. Once the man was in custody, Curry County police discovered that he had an active warrant. He was subsequently transferred to the custody of the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Office, and as of the latest updates was behind bars at the county jail while awaiting the continuation of his legal proceedings. Number 3. Dion Patterson. On May the 3rd of 2023, Atlanta police notified the public that they'd received reports of an active shooter situation at Northside Hospital's Midtown facility. The department issued a tweet at about 12 p.m. urging those near the building to shelter in place as they dealt with the individual responsible, who'd already inflicted multiple confirmed injuries. Authorities later identified the suspect as 24-year-old Dion Patterson, a former Coast Guard electrician's mate second class, who'd been discharged from active duty 3 months before the incident. He had non-violent criminal histories in Henry and Clayton counties dating back to 2015. On the day of the shooting, Patterson was accompanied to the hospital by his mother. He was reportedly seeking medication for his anxiety, but at some point during his visit, he became agitated and abruptly lashed out in violence. After opening fire inside the hospital, Patterson hijacked a pickup truck at a nearby gas station and fled the scene. Several minutes later, Atlanta police launched a manhunt for the suspect, increasing their presence in Vinings, Cumberland, and the area surrounding Truist Park, where the Atlanta Braves play home games. A license plate reader caught a glimpse of the stolen car during the beginning stages of the manhunt. The vehicle was later found at a parking garage, with a nearby camera capturing the suspect at around 12:30 p.m., 30 minutes after the shooting. After 8 hours on the run, Patterson was tracked down in Smyrna's Waterford Place neighborhood, about 13 miles from the hospital where the attack took place. One of the shooting victims, an Atlanta-based CDC worker named Amy St. Pierre, was killed, while 4 others were critically injured. Patterson consequently faced charges of murder and aggravated assault. Number 2. Michael Charles Burham. 34-year-old Carla Hodgkin was gunned down inside her home on William Street in Jamestown, New York, on May the 11th of 2023. The prime suspect in the ensuing murder investigation was Michael Charles Burham, who set fire to another woman's car shortly after the shooting. Over a week after Hodgkin's slaying, Burham allegedly kidnapped an elderly couple from Warren County, Pennsylvania at gunpoint, before driving them all the way to South Carolina in a rental car. The couple were later found unharmed, but Burham remained on the run as the alleged offenses stemming from his crime spree continued to grow in number. Eventually, a segment on the television program On Patrol Live helped law enforcement track the suspect down. The manhunt for Burham drew increased interest as a direct result of the story being featured on the show. The national attention generated multiple leads as to the man's whereabouts, and he was ultimately located prowling behind someone's shed. The exhaustive multi-state manhunt came to an end as Burham was finally in custody, facing numerous felony and misdemeanor charges. While subsequently being held at the Warren County Prison in Pennsylvania, the man escaped. According to the Warren County Public Information Officer, Burham waited until he was unrestrained in the recreation area to make his move. He climbed on top of some exercise equipment, then left the prison yard through a metal grate in the roof. He subsequently used a makeshift rope consisting of several bed sheets to lower himself to the ground before fleeing into nearby woods on foot. As of the most recent updates provided on July the 11th of 2023, Burham was still at large. A police spokesman called him dangerous saying it was entirely likely that he was armed while urging citizens not to approach him. Number 1. Eric Freen. Tragedy unfolded outside the trooper barracks of the Pennsylvania State Police in the Pocono Mountains during a late-night shift change on September the 12th of 2014. Corporal Brian K. Dixon II and Trooper Alex Douglas endured a sudden barrage of gunfire from a .308 caliber rifle. 38-year-old Dixon was killed while Douglas was left critically injured. A total of 4 shots were fired by a sniper positioned 82 yards away at the edge of the nearby woods. The suspect retreated back into the trees and escaped, but investigators were able to identify him a few days later. An abandoned 2001 Jeep Cherokee, partially submerged in a swamp near the intersection of Pennsylvania Route 402 and US Route 6, led authorities to Eric Freen, at the time in his early 30s. The vehicle reportedly contained Freen's social security card, information about foreign embassies, camouflage paint, and bullet casings matched to the shooting. Within a couple of days, a warrant had been issued for the man's arrest, and an extensive manhunt had been launched. The search for Freen came to involve nearly 1,000 law enforcement officers, including local police, state police forces from Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, as well as the FBI, U.S. Marshals Service, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Investigators employed tracking dogs, but Freen managed to evade them by utilizing water crossings and terrain conditions. The suspect was described as a self-taught survivalist with a grudge against law enforcement. Police believed they encountered Freen on several occasions during the manhunt, but each time he slipped away because of his knowledge of the terrain. A police spokesman eventually told the press, "I think this is a game to him." It wasn't until the night of October the 30th, over a month after the initial incident, that Freen was finally taken into custody. U.S. Marshals found him in an open field near an unused airport hangar at Birchwood Pocono Air Park. While he wasn't armed at the time of his arrest, authorities did recover a .308 caliber rifle and a handgun. Freen was charged with a litany of offenses, including first-degree murder and attempted murder. In April of 2017, the man was found guilty on all charges and consequently sentenced to death. As of the latest developments, Freen was awaiting execution on death row at SCI Phoenix, a maximum security prison in Pennsylvania. Thanks for watching. Would you rather spend a week in the most dangerous prison in your country or lose your right to vote? Let us know in the comments section below.